by Riverside.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. It's the 4th and 1 podcast, as always, live from Lancaster and Lidditz, Pennsylvania. Sitting next to me, as always, is good old Captain Boring. Had without me last week, had a pretty good podcast from the clips that I saw. Pretty good questions. No idea who that guy was.
Oh, that's Robert.
Hi, Robert. Thanks for coming on. You did pretty good from what I could tell.
Robert is actually a big fan of you. He finds you very funny. So it's funny that he knows who you are, but it's one of those situations. He knows who you are, but you don't know who he is. Yeah, no, he's big time Michigan fan. Did you only watch the clips or did you listen to any of it?
You know, I didn't process it. It's not like I didn't process in my head that, hey, that one episode that you did that was kind of on the whim that you did without me. I should probably listen to that so I can talk about it with him next time.
Yeah. Especially
because you kept that to a tight hour, which I was impressed about.
Thank you. Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, it was a really kind of on the fly podcast. And his knowledge of college football is very close to mine, if not exceeding mine. And you would have known that if you would have listened to it, because he knows a lot of the trophies, like the individual trophies awards, and I couldn't name them, but he names them. Also, I call him the Ginger Adam Schefter because he will give me news before it even breaks over ESPN.
So he just knows things?
Oh, yeah.
Impressive.
Yes.
Good job, Robert. I will have to go back and listen. As always, you can get our stuff anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as YouTube. If you search us for the 4th and 1 podcast, 86% of the people who watch and listen to us on YouTube are not subscribed. So maybe just go ahead and subscribe. It helps our statistics and it makes us feel better on the inside in our nagging holes that is our egos.
It releases dopamine, that much needed dopamine. We all need
that much needed dopamine. So as always, we're hosted on Anchor.fm. If you love what we're doing, you can support us there. Anchor.fm. Excuse me, I'm drinking Sprite, so I'm burping a lot. Anchor.fm/4th and 1. As well as you can find all our links and subscribe to us there and on our Instagram. So we had to catch everybody up with what we're doing. We previewed SEC, okay? We previewed ACC, okay? We're moving around the country, and to remind everybody, college football is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Only 10 weeks away, roughly. I think I'm missing 1 week, but
about 70 days. Yeah.
So it's coming up. So we decided we're going to take them week by week, conferences week by week, and this time we're going to do a conference that's a little bit
forgotten.
Yeah, misrepresented. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. Now, I don't want it to make it sound like it's an anti-West Coast thing because the state of California does suck at sometimes. Okay? But then again, so does the state of Florida, but you don't go see me bashing them. The issue historically with Pac-12, if you haven't been able to guess, and Pac-12 teams is the fact that they are on West Coast, which means they're 3 hours behind. And the majority of America lives on the East Coast. And if not, lives in the Central Time Zone. Well,
does the majority of them? I mean, I'll take your word for it. Does the majority of America live on the East Coast? I'd assume so because the second biggest city is New York.
No. Biggest city is New York City, metro area. Second is Los Angeles, then Houston, then I think Miami. Not sure about that one, and then Philly.
Sure. Okay, all right.
So majority of the major metro areas are on the East Coast, and then you have Houston and Texas, who are in the Central, and everybody forgets about all the rest besides Los Angeles. So with that being said, before we preview them, they don't get a lot of love, but there's a lot of good football that comes out of there. We're talking about the people who brought us fast tempo offenses, air raid. O.J. Simpson. A lot of some good things and some things that ruined the game.
Well, and they really brought us more so. They brought us the modern day college athlete of being a celebrity. They brought us the Matt Leiners, the Reggie Bushes, the whoever went out, whoever else was at USC at that time. I mean,
Marcus Mariota was in everybody's name back in 2000 and whenever.
Deshaun Jackson was a celebrity at Cal, basically. Stanford, you had Toby Gerhart, which I know people don't know. You had Christian McCaffrey there. But
Aaron Luck. Andrew Luck. There we go. That's the right name.
Well, both. It's a combination of Aaron Rodgers and Andrew Luck.
David.
Andrew Luck was more high profile than Aaron Rodgers, but still, I mean, they both went on to have both of them really good NFL careers and still is having. So, yeah, like you said, a lot of good football in the Pac-12, but it is forgotten because of the coast they live on. And this is especially true when it comes to Heisman time. And I just want to remind everyone that Derrick Henry's Heisman Trophy belongs in Christian McCaffrey's house. Christian McCaffrey broke Barry Sanders' all-purpose yardage record and had over 2,000 yards rushing that year. He basically was a matchup nightmare. You could line him up as a wide receiver and a running back. He was basically Deebo Samuel, but at Stanford, and was running wild. And meanwhile, Derrick Henry had a great season, over 2,000 yards, but Christian McCaffrey was more productive. And when you look at the statistics for Heisman voting, if you go back and look at it, and this is what I will finish with this because I do realize I am being boring, Christian McCaffrey's games weren't being watched at all.
Sure. Which is our main point.
But he was putting up ridiculous numbers.
Two jokes here. First of all, you saying Christian McCaffrey over Derrick Henry.
Wow. Yes. That's pretty racist, but correct.
Okay. All right.
This is kicks and giggles.
Yep.
And also, do you know what also Christian McCaffrey broke?
I don't know.
His legs, because he's always injured. So
his ankles, yes. I was going really dirty with it because his girlfriend's also like super hot. So, there's a dirty joke.
Okay, to be fair, have you seen Christian McCaffrey?
Christian McCaffrey is also super hot, yes.
He's a very good-looking man.
Yes,
and as far as McCaffreys go, he's probably one of the better-looking ones. Also, big fans of the Harbaughs, the McCaffreys, until you suck and you have to go play for your dad. Or whatever.
So
hey, Daddy,
I'm in an online dynasty right now in NCAA 14.
Yeah.
And I just played Rice and they updated the rosters. I had to play Luke McCaffrey. Dude's a nightmare to defend because he'll just take off running and he's pretty quick.
How many McCaffreys are there?
I think Luke's the last one. I know.
And he's playing at Rice?
He was at, I think that's his second. So he was at Michigan, right? He was at Michigan. Then he transferred to be at Colorado State. But then I think Colorado State fired his dad. And so he transferred to Rice, I'm pretty sure.
So siblings, there's Max McCaffrey, Dylan McCaffrey, and Luke McCaffrey.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're talking about Dylan.
No, I was talking about Luke, who was at Nebraska and transferred to Rice. I was thinking of Dylan, though. Dylan was at Michigan and is now playing for his dad at, I think, Colorado State?
Northern Colorado.
It was somewhere in Colorado.
Yeah.
Either way, he's 420 blazing all day and having a hell of a time.
The Max McCaffrey played for the 49ers for 2 seasons and now plays for the played for the DC Defenders in 2020. He's retired, most likely.
Alrighty. Well, good to know.
So maybe one of them will pan out. We'll have to see. Anyway, let's just go ahead and jump on into it. There's a lot of teams in Pac-12, and by a lot, I mean 14.
Yeah.
So we're going to start, as always, from Simeon's bottom up. Micaiah, for the sake of the show, I'm not going to keep track of wins and losses.
Fair enough.
Maybe we will after the fact. But let's go ahead. We're going to start with the good old Wildcats of Arizona, who haven't been relevant since, who even knows at this point. That's your last team on your page here.
Yeah. Starting from the bottom, I don't think that they're 1-16 in the last 2 years. Oh, and
everybody say hi to Duke.
Everyone say hi to Duke.
Hi, I'm Paul.
1-16. However, Jed Fish only took over last year. He did sign a solid recruiting class, actually. And really, his goal is to just not be a pushover. So they were not great, and then COVID hit. They were mediocre, and then COVID hit with Kevin Sumlin, and then they were really, really bad.
So 2 things here. One, we have to remember Pac-12, West Coast. West Coast took it more strictly with COVID-19 protocols. Pac-12 took it more strictly with COVID-19 protocols. So they were hit a lot harder. Who came out of the Pac-12? Utah did actually a very good job considering, played some good team football. We'll get to them later.
Are you talking 2020 or 2021?
Last year.
Okay, yes. Okay.
Because we have to remember most of the teams in the college football last year were just they fired on all cylinders. There were some people and COVID protocol, blah blah blah, but most of everybody was just like, all right, we're done. I don't care. Forget about the political things, guys. We're moving on. And then there was the Pac-12 being like, you gotta lock it down. And so that's where we're at. What are you expecting to see really from Arizona this year?
Really, I just want them to not be a pushover. I honestly think Jed Fish is going to do some good things offensively. Now, Don Brown is there defensively, so their defense will be probably mediocre. But again, they'll probably only be mediocre because of the style of defense is Don Brown, or did he get the head coaching job at UMass?
He's back at UMass.
He's back at UMass. So that might be a good thing for Arizona, because the style of defense Don Brown did play was more of single high man coverage, coming with blitzes all the time. I can get into that, but I won't. So really just not be a pushover. They're probably a 4-win team this year, my guess is. Do you want me to even click into their schedule to see? But really all you're looking for from Arizona is to just not be a pushover. So last year, they only scored 206 and they gave up 377 points. So that's a point discrepancy. You really, honestly, if that is closer to level, if it's 275 to 350, that's a 4-win football team. And that's pretty good for a second team. And again, as we said, they were competitive. From what I remember last year with Arizona, they were competitive in a lot of games. It's just their talent is at the very, very bottom, and they got to build that roster.
I'll allow it.
Yeah, I'll just hit you up with the teams that I kind of want to go over their record. Let's switch it up a little bit. I don't think Arizona State is in the basement. Let me make that clear. Makai's going to go over his thoughts in a second, but because we're in state, it's interesting. Now, Makai, this is a weird team for me because ASU kind of rebranded when they bought in Herm Edwards. It was a big hire for them. They were expecting good recruit. You told me, everybody else told me, expect good recruiting classes from him. Expect him to bring them up to the powerhouse that Arizona State kind of had been a little bit. They've been fighting for it, not powerhouse. I shouldn't say powerhouse, but they've been fighting for the title. And honestly, he's been there for, I think, 3 seasons now. Kind of a disappointment in my book. What are you seeing from them this year?
Well, again, Arizona State was kind of where Arizona is right now. They were pretty bad. And so they had to rework that. Their first year, I think they kind of overachieved, and I think they made a bowl game. And I'm not kind of too sure the entire coaching history for Coach Edwards. A lot of people feel that, or question that he was too old, but that he was a good coach and going to bring up the young men the right way inside his program. Here's the problem with Arizona State. there are impending sanctions coming with Arizona State. Everybody knows this, and yet until the investigation is complete and the NCAA actually has a hearing and has a final verdict, there's nothing that you can do except keep on keeping on, but it's going to hurt recruiting. The impending sanctions are from the COVID year when they recruited, when the NCAA and specifically the Pac-12 put all recruiting on pause. There's some questions about money as well. This was before NIL. So it doesn't have to do with any sanctions before COVID, but apparently they were recruiting and holding visits when they weren't allowed to, which I did not know this until I was doing research. But this is a recipe for disaster, not only because of the impending COVID sanctions, Simeon, but they have a new OC, a very old head coach. They have a new DC as well, and 5 other coaches have resigned over this. They lost Jaden Daniels to LSU, who was their 3-year starter. They're only returning 4 defensive starters from the second best conference defense last year. They did finish second in their division at 6-3 in their division. And they were 8-5 overall last year. I just think that with Arizona, with everything looming, it will be. We should give Herm Edwards a standing ovation for if they win 8 games again. I think we are looking at a 5-win football team. I really do, just because you're breaking in a whole bunch of new talent with an old head coach, and if they don't see the downside this year, slide this year, they will see it next year. Right off the bat, just real look, their schedule isn't easy. They have to go to Oklahoma State the second week of the season.
Yikes.
That is sandwiched in between 2 gimme weeks. Then they're at home versus Utah. They go to USC. Washington's going to be no slouch. Stanford, okay. Colorado, that's at. Then it's home to UCLA, Washington State, Oregon State, and they finish up with Arizona. So you're telling me you're going to get 8 wins in there with a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, 5 coaches resigning, brand new quarterback, and basically a whole new defense? I'm just not going to buy it.
I think that's fair. And I really have nothing to bite off. The Pac-12 is a little weird because they corner the market. They are a monopoly in the West and Southwest. You really have no other big conferences that are competing for room out there compared to like Big Ten, SEC. Yeah. So like all of the major California programs are in the Pac-12. So there's not necessarily a ton of parity. They've brought us things, but there's not necessarily a ton of parity. So I find that when teams go off the cliff, they go off the cliff quickly.
Because there's not a lot of parity, do you think that's why they are the conference that is? That's my tagline for the Pac-12, the conference that gets forgotten. I mean, the Pac-12 hasn't made the college football playoff since the inaugural season when Oregon did it.
Right. I think that and the fact that they can only recruit from their pool and that recruits get pulled out. Like, no offense. If Jalen Daniels, am I remembering that correctly? Jaden Daniels. Yep. Apologies. Was at, let's say, your favorite, Wake Forest.
Yeah.
He's not leaving. Just because of the conference that he's in.
Sure.
Same kind of level of football team, you know. Penn State's another great example. He's not leaving because he's in the Big Ten. And the competition there isn't a bunch of kids from California and Arizona.
He knows that the Arizona, unless if they have an unbelievable run, Arizona State isn't making the college football playoff.
Yeah, and you also have to remember, where did he land again? I'm sorry, I
LSU.
forget. LSU. That's good. Perfectly good example of kind of proves my point. The only quarterback that I can think of that's currently in the league that went besides, okay, so there's two that went to a California or Pac-12 school. You have, that went to a Pac-12 school. There's only one, I think, and that's Aaron Rodgers.
Justin Herbert.
That's right. Oregon.
Yeah.
Thank you. So two. That went to a California school. There's, I think, two or three, but I think the other one's being David Carr, not David Carr. Oh my gosh.
No, David.
And it's David Carr. What's his brother's name again?
No, Derek Carr.
Derek Carr.
David Carr's the brother.
His brother. Yeah. Is Derek Carr. And that's in Fresno State, which
yeah.
is, I think, in Mountain West. So, like, it just kind of, I don't know. You're 100% right that they're the
Pac-12 as a conference is also getting treated like the old school Mountain West when Boise was really good.
Yeah.
How Boise State every year you knew were going to be right there for a spot in the national championship, but there was no margin for error. And that's the thing with the Pac-12, even going back to 2 years ago with Oregon, how Oregon, they had one loss or they had no losses. But their conference schedule was just absolutely horseshit. Right. And then they lost one game and you're like, oh, well, they're gone. But you can make the argument with the roster that they had that they were one of the four best teams, but unfortunately their schedule just didn't match up. So it gives me very much early 2000s, 2010s Mountain West Boise State vibes, where there's no margin for error. So whoever comes out of this, whether it be, and I think the top teams are, spoiler alert, either USC or Utah,
right,
and maybe even Washington State, you have to only have one loss. And that's kind of why I think people are freaking out about Lincoln Riley and USC being a contender for the college football playoff. With a new team and a new coaching staff and all that, I get it. He's going to put up 1,100,000 points. There's two losses on that schedule somewhere.
Right. It's for USC?
For USC.
Okay. We'll get to them in a second. I think there's a part of me that kind of wants to branch off. But let's go talk about Washington State for a hot second.
Okay.
Because that was a surprise for me. When you said that you think they're one of the top programs
in the Pac-12 this year, yeah.
Of the Pac-12 this year, that surprised me. Tell me why you think they're the top program.
So a lot of people don't realize this. They had a very emotional season last year, so they brought in a new coach. That new coach was actually doing good things. Okay, they won a couple games, and then he got fired because he wouldn't get COVID vaccinated.
Right.
And it's a state school, so he was a state employee, so there really was no option. The coach that took over is staying on. In their non-conference, they were pretty terrible. However, they finished second in their division at 6-3 in the conference, 7-6 overall. Stay on, so their head coach, Jack Dicker, stays on his head coach. Incarnate Ward, do you know where that college is? I didn't even know.
Incarnate Word?
Yes, I didn't even know that was
East Coast school, isn't it?
I didn't even know that was a college. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Didn't know it was a college. I don't know
where. They usually get played. The SEC plays them as fluff teams.
Sure. Well, their quarterback Cameron Ward, who threw for 47 touchdowns last year in the air raid system, comes over with his offensive coordinator that was at Incarnate Ward. His name is Eric Morris.
Word.
Yes. Word. Do I keep saying Ward?
Yes, you keep saying Ward.
Their secondary.
San Antonio.
Okay. Their secondary only loses 3 starters. Or they lose 3 starters. Their entire defense only loses 3 starters. So a lot of the defense comes back and experience. Quarterback comes back with his offensive play caller that he obviously feels very comfortable with if they're throwing the ball for 47 touchdowns. I think that they're going to be a surprise. I really do. If you can stick together through all that mess and then bring in the type of talent that they brought in, I really think Washington State is looking up. And remember, they're not that far off from, I mean, their success, having successful seasons, isn't that far gone because, their coach that's at Mississippi State now, Mike Leach, was just there.
Yes.
And he had them in the top 10 a couple seasons before he left. Their schedule, very doable, very tough, though. Open with Idaho, then they go to jump around at Wisconsin, Colorado State, Oregon, Cal, both at home. Then they travel to USC and Oregon State. Oregon State is a lot like Iowa. They're always going to get someone. Then they get Utah at home, Stanford, Arizona State, Arizona, and then they finish up with Washington. Tough schedule. However, they get USC on the road, but they get Utah at home and Oregon. Now, Oregon is the 4th game of the year, and if you're going to go based off of my prediction, that Oregon game, 9-24, is going to come down to who wins the division. Now, again, unfortunately for Washington State, it's no longer the winners of each division.
Right.
It's best conference win percentage.
Oh, we're doing like BCS stuff now?
Well, yeah, that's what we talked about. Do you not remember having this conversation?
No, I remember having this conversation.
So they could win.
I'm doing this for the listeners.
So, I mean, I think they're also doing away with divisions. So they might be a 4th. They might be like a 3rd place team in the Pac-12, 3rd or 4th place team in the Pac-12, to even the point where if you would do the divisions, they would have won their division. But because they're going to that, but I honestly think they're probably one of the 4 best teams in the Pac-12.
All right, give me the bullet points of those again. They're the fourth one of the 4 best teams in the back because they have a new quarterback. They've settled, and they've settled down. And what was the last point?
They came off of COVID crazy. They brought in an experienced quarterback. More so, they brought the offensive coordinator that was with the quarterback last year, where he threw for 47 touchdowns.
Nice.
And they're only replacing 3 defensive starters.
All right, cool. Well, let's move across the pond. Not really across the state, to Washington, Seattle, the Huskies. They were all the rage. You forgot that Washington was also in the college football playoff.
They are what I'm hoping Michigan does not become, which is a kind of one and done, if you will.
Okay, explain. I was assuming this
Washington
was going to be your breakdown anyway.
Washington was on the up and up, solid quarterback play, great running game, and a just absolutely stout defense. And then they fell off a cliff. And they made the college football playoff. They absolutely got routed by an SEC school. It was Alabama that time. They only scored 1 touchdown. Michigan only scored 1 touchdown. And then they never made it back. And so Michigan's hoping to avoid that. And so that's what I'm hoping Michigan doesn't become, is the Washington Huskies. Problem with the Washington Huskies is when their head coach, who was at Boise State, and his name is escaping me, and then he left, they hired a defensive coach. And
I was about to say, let me guess, a defensive-minded
coach. And
coach.
he was not great. Their offense was absolutely anemic last year. Kevin DeBoer is coming from Fresno to revamp.
Speak of the devil.
That offense. It was the 3rd worst in the conference, and they have to find an O-line and a quarterback because they don't have either. Their true freshman last year showed flashes, but still seemed overwhelmed, and so they just need an entire facelift offensively. They won 4 games last year overall. They're probably looking at, assuming you're a good coach, you can probably go from 4 to 6 wins and be a 500 team.
He just figured out the whole damn thing from beginning to end like he was in the room.
Let's move south a little bit. We're jumping 2 states down. I want to hit off at Stanford. Again, another one of those teams. Hasn't since Harbaugh's been there. So, I mean, tough school to recruit at because they're so smart. What are we seeing from them? We kind of see flashes every once in a while. So what are we seeing from them?
What are we seeing from them now, or what are we hoping to see from them?
What are we going to see from them this season?
Stanford has been on a steady decline, as you pointed out, since Harbaugh left. And really, it's been their loss of identity. When Harbaugh was there, and then even in the few years after Harbaugh was there, it was big offensive linemen, line up, punch in the mouth, run the football, and then play great defense. And it just hasn't been the same. And I don't know whether that's because some of the recruiting restrictions that they have, right? As you said, academic-wise, if it is because that now these big offensive linemen are realizing I can go literally anywhere, get drafted from any school, and not have to maintain a 3.8 GPA. Or, I'm being hyperbole, but you know what I'm saying. A team that was built on the run last year, but just couldn't. They are getting 10 offensive starters back, which makes me think good things. However, they started 3-2, including beating Oregon last year, and then they lost 7 straight.
So what do you think their record's going to be this year?
Oh my goodness. Well, I like the fact that they have 10 starters back. But I mean, right off the bat, I mean, they start with Colgate, whatever, and then they get USC at home week 2. Oh my goodness! At Washington, Oregon State, at Notre Dame. Yes,
they play They play in the North. I mean, they're not division based anymore. They used to play in the North, which is a tough division and has the more of the skilled based teams. So you're giving them 4 wins? I see your hand over there.
Automatically, in my mind, they're looking at least 5 losses. So then you're looking at 7-5, do a coin flip on at least 2 more games. They could be a 7-loss team again, or they could go the opposite way. Their offense finds consistency. They run the ball. Well, Tanner McKee is more consistent with his passes, and they show up on defense, and they could win 10 games. I honestly think they're a 7-5 football team.
You answered my question, and you think they're going up or down after the season? Which way you have them trending?
After the season?
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to say because me and Robert actually talked about this last week. This feels like David Shaw's last hurrah. He's been there long enough, and I understand Stanford was at the bottom, and so there's, again, it's kind of what I preached on about Michigan is once you just don't want to return to the bottom, but at some point you got to look in a new direction. But last year, their losses were their last 7 losses, 28-10, 31-34, 20-13, 52-7, 35-14, 41-11, 45-14. A lot of them weren't even close. So I have them trending down after the season because I think David Shaw leaves or gets shown the exit and they move in a different direction. And so it's going to be hard to say, but I think you bring in a new coach, there's going to be a little of a slump before you get up.
Hi, I'm Paul.
So let's take the short car ride from Stanford to Berkeley. The California Golden Bears haven't been relevant ever. So
Since Deshaun Jackson. I
mean, and even then, they weren't relevant. He was just a really good player. Players come out of Cal, but
they were a top 7 team in the country, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember, and I'm not going to look it up because I don't care that much. So I think this is one school, and this is where I will get a little bit political, that I think the politics hurts them.
Okay.
And so they probably don't have the best recruiting class. It's also a very smart school. And so, again, high academic standards. So what are you seeing from Cal, if anything? Are they going to surprise us, or is it just more poop?
I think it's somewhere in between. I think it's a microwave dinner. Lukewarm, and you're not really ever satisfied with it.
Nice. I like it.
Thank you. They need to find a quarterback, wide receiver. They fielded a solid D, and Justin Wilcox is a defensive coordinator by nature, but it kind of feels like the final year for him. So they were a 5-7 win team last year. I think they're hovering right around that again. But as you said, California really has never been great, and they've never also really. They've been terrible, but they've never been great. So
they've given us some weird talent, because you have to realize they've given us Marshawn Lynch, they've given us Deshaun Jackson, and they've given us Aaron Rodgers
and Jared
Goff. Just very spectrumy, not from like a
very
mentally...
all over the place. But with all that,
that's what I meant to say.
But with all that NFL talent, you have to remember.
Fail.
All right. With all that NFL talent, they really never had.
Wow, that's pretty racist.
I don't have that's not PC, bud. Anyway, continue.
They never really had great years, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So it was more of they recruited, because of the academics and all that. They recruited high level, high intellectual people to be at that school and be in the spotlight, and then those people matured once they reached the NFL. Because even Aaron Rodgers wasn't looked at as the guy,
right?
The number one quarterback.
Well, Alex Smith was taking over him,
right?
Didn't he fall to the 30th position?
Yeah,
am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah,
he was expected to go top 5, and then he just dropped like a bag of rocks in the water.
It looks like in recent memory, their best year was 2018 when they went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They went 7-5 in the regular season.
Okay, so let's go over. Oh wait, hold on. I have a soundbite. That one's gonna hurt. So let's go over to 420 person's favorite place. We're gonna head over to Colorado,
okay,
as it's more properly. Is Colorado State in this? I always forget.
Colorado State is not. No,
they're in the Mountain West, I think, or
correct.
whatever.
That is correct.
So Colorado, one of those teams that you forget is in the Pac-12 most of the time.
Yes, because of how anemic they have been. Now, Joel Klatt was their quarterback and it set a whole bunch of records for them. And he does college football analyst for Fox now. They lost 2 linebackers and 3 DBs, gone from the second worst pass defense and the worst defense overall in 2021. And their offense was only good for 21 points a game. So the fact that Arizona in the offseason power rankings are below them for this upcoming season, I have no idea why. Because they may be able to squeak out 4 wins. So you tell me the worst pass defense is going to get better after losing 3 defensive backs, and their worst. I mean, yeah, granted, their offense is probably going to be better than 21 points a game, but come on.
Well, I mean, I get that it's college, but 21 points a game, that's not half bad.
That's average, though. Remember that.
I know. For the Pac-12 especially, it's average.
Yeah, it's Colorado. I mean,
so you put them in the middle, win-loss roughly. Give me a rough win-loss, kind of what you're feeling. Are they
4 games? What they did, 4 or fewer?
Wouch.
Because it's garbage.
We're just going to leave them there and go from one garbage team to another one. OSU. Not the Ohio State University. It's the Oregon State University.
Yes.
The Beavers. Another team that you're wondering how they field a football team most of the time.
Corvallis.
Is that where they're located?
That is where they're located.
See, Oregon has exactly one city and one city only. Well, technically two. And if you're a Nike fan, 3. And that is Portland. And then there's Eugene.
And what happened to Seattle? That's Washington.
Oregon. That's Washington State.
Excellent. Good.
See, this is how much we don't care about the Pacific Northwest, ladies and gentlemen. Very beautiful. Lots of state parks. Also really strange and really weird.
Pretty liberal with the ganja, too. So,
Yeah. And the death, also. Oregon. Some really weird laws up in Oregon. So,
just out west, it's kind of just weird in general.
I probably would want to be high most of the time.
Well, Oregon State wasn't actually half bad last year. They actually were
surprising.
Above 500. They finished 7-6. So go figure. Their quarterback, Chance Nolan, needs more consistency. 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions.
A white man!
More than likely with a name called Chance and the last name of Nolan. Absolutely.
Figured it.
They're replacing 2 offensive linemen and an NFL running back who was drafted.
Oh,
yes.
good for him.
Opportunity about now again, I did this research a long time ago. So here's what I have written. Opportunity abounds, 4th in conference in yards and scoring.
Okay.
So
that's a great thing. We could just stop right there. Micaiah's face that he just made, if you're watching, is Oregon State season. So what? Okay? So are you going to do anything about it? Like, I don't know. Who knows?
We'll have to see. They scored 406 points last year.
Yeah.
Now, they gave up 335. So, right where I said, that is a 500 football team. However, let me see how many losses they potentially will open up with Boise State at home. And then they get Fresno. However, Fresno's not half bad, right? So that could be 0-2 or 2-0 or 1-1. You don't know. Then they do get Middle Tennessee State, and then they start. And oh my goodness, the gauntlet: USC, Utah, Stanford. Utah and Stanford are on the road. Then they get Washington State, Colorado, Washington. Probably a 500-win team. I think how they do in their first 2 weeks with Boise State and Fresno State is really going to set the tone for their season.
Yeah, Mountain West kind of actually scary when it comes to
Mountain West is kind of actually actually pulls. Yeah.
Because you have San Jose State, who did okay last year, but Fresno State, who did better last year than you have San Diego State, who almost went undefeated.
San Diego State can go fuck off.
You had one job. Just the one.
The Fighting Brady Hoax, as Micaiah calls him. The Fighting Jelly Cream. The problem with Brady Hoke is I only ever see him as the ex-governor from New Jersey, Chris Christie. So every time I think of Brady Hoke, I just think of a fat donut, cream-filled, specifically, with cream falling out of it.
They do kind of look alike, yeah.
So
Brady Hoke has actually lost.
Gonna hurt.
He has lost a lot of weight, but I just can't stand him from what he did to the University of Michigan.
That's fair. So let us move on from the Fighting Brady Hoax. Okay, this is where life gets interesting. Well, these last 4 teams, because let's start with USC. I wanted to start with UCLA.
You don't want to finish with USC. I mean, because they are the darlings. They are the hot ticket.
But here's why I want to go with them right now.
Okay.
Because I don't think so.
Okay.
I think Oregon and or Utah. Well, not Oregon. I think it's gonna be Utah, and I think it's gonna be Utah by a lot. What do you have here? Don't they have a ton of people returning?
Who are we talking about? Who do you want to talk about here?
Returning of Cameron Rising at QB and RB Tavion Thomas. Yeah, Utah. I'm looking at Utah.
Okay.
All right. Utah, to me, is the winner of the Pac-12, hands down. It's not going to be a competition.
I think you're wrong.
I know you think I'm wrong. And let me explain why USC isn't going to be a problem this first year. Because they're in LA. I think it's flash, it's glamour, it's dirty, it's disgusting. People are leaving LA. It's not as big as it used to be. If this was 1986 and he had the murderer himself, O.J. Simpson, as his running back, there's no question that they're raking through everybody. The issue is LA isn't what it used to be, in my opinion. And Lincoln Riley, I'll go on a reign here. Lincoln Riley deserting his team because he can't get anything done in a better conference than the Pac-12, hands down, in my opinion, just speaks volumes that I don't think. It's like LeBron going to the Lakers. There's nothing good happening there. You got a bubble win. That's about it. Lincoln Riley is going to give you a bubble win this season at best, and then we'll see what he has to do. I'm writing USC off this year. If Arizona beats USC, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. I get it. You have a lot of talent. So what? You have a great top-tier, top probably 10 of all-time college coach. Yeah, show me what you do with it. Listen, there's this great, I'm quoting Bill Cosby, so forgive me, okay? So, of the Cosby Show, his second youngest daughter brings home, like, she's 20, he's like 38. And I think they technically eloped.
Okay.
And so he comes home from college. They eloped. It's this 38-year-old dude, steady job, really nice guy. She's going to college for something. And all I remember is Bill Cosby, the joke of what it was, he asked the guy, do you like steak? Yeah. Do you like mashed potatoes? 100%. Okay. Yeah. Imagine for a second that you got a really, really, really nice steak. Really good. Covered in butter, rosemary, thyme, the whole thing cooked to perfection. And you got the best mashed potatoes and the best asparagus on a platter. Now imagine you went to a music festival's, he doesn't use this, but I'm using it, a music festival's trash can and got the lid of that trash can and put that really good meal on it, and I presented it to you. It wouldn't look so appetizing anymore. That is USC to me, because they haven't been relevant since 2005, in my opinion. They've only had drama, both on the field and off the field, since they've been relevant. And even the relevancy was marred by the fact that Reggie Bush was getting paid, and I put those in air quotes. So they've never really been a solid. Their most well-known alumni is O.J. Simpson, and he killed 2 people. So you're telling me that Lincoln Riley, who deserted the University of Oklahoma Sooners, very poorly in my taste, gets off a private fucking jet, and we're just going to give him the Pac-12? No! Prove it to me. You presented one of probably the most exciting teams in all of college football this year, which is the USC Trojans. I will give them that. But you took puke-covered garbage can and presented it to me. Put him anywhere. Put him at fucking Arizona, and I would love it. But you give me USC.
All right.
Yeah, no.
So I really didn't think this is where this was going to go, but we can go there. I don't know how much time we have, but we're going to go there. Work's been a little stressful, so let's just go there. USC is going to win the Pac-12, and it's not even going to be close. You fucking moron. Okay? Listen. You like that? Before this rant that you just went on, I was going to name Utah. I was going to name Washington State. Heck, I was even going to throw in Oregon maybe, because Dan Lanning is a great defensive coordinator, and the roster at Oregon isn't half bad. But you sent me over the edge.
Number 1, how dare you?
USC is going to win the Pac-12, and they're going to, well, not make it look easy, because the defense is going to be trash. Because, again, since you don't even listen to your own podcast, I called out Alex Grinch last week with Robert, and he's a mediocre defensive coordinator at best. And so he's going to take a defense that gave up 381 points last year, and they're going to give up about that this year. But the only difference is their offense, instead of scoring 344 points, you know how many they're going to score? They're going to score 520,000 points this year.
You could have just said 520.
I could have, but I wanted to make everyone know that Caleb Williams, Travis Dye, that huge offensive line, Mario Williams. Oh, you must have forgot that they have the Biletnikoff winner from last year, Jordan Addison, which means they're going to average at least 38 points a game. Okay? You tell me who on their schedule is also going to average 38 points a game besides Utah. Go ahead, Look at it. It's no one, which means that they are looking at one loss potentially. And even if, because Utah and USC used to be in the same conference, doesn't even matter anymore. So USC and Utah, they're going to play each other not uno times, but doso times. And guess what? You might get Lincoln Riley once, you're not getting him twice. And about how he left Oklahoma, I get it. It was sudden. It was not great. And yes, he walked off a private jet in USC in LA. And I will give you, LA's dirty and just disgusting, and no who wants to move there. In fact,
ew, David.
1.7 million people moved out of California last year because it's so disgusting and dirty. But you're meaning to tell me the greatest offensive mind in college football with not one, not
History,
two,
probably.
not three, not four, but at least 6 home run transfers on the offensive side of the ball isn't going to average 38 points a game and carry a defense just like he did at Oklahoma, except in a worse conference. You are out of your gourd, sir.
Again, humans are pretty dumb.
I will give you they will lose to Utah, but they're only going to lose to Utah once, and it's going to be in the regular season because Lincoln Riley doesn't lose championship games.
Okay. Except he does. That's why he left Oklahoma.
Except he doesn't. He doesn't lose conference championship games. He might lose college football playoff games. He doesn't.
You're forgetting the fact that he lost to OSU last year.
He lost to OSU last year?
He lost to Oklahoma State, didn't he?
He didn't make the conference championship game last year.
That's right. He had a bogus loss against. Who did he lose again?
They lost
season?
a couple hard games early in the season.
Yeah, one was really ugly, and they should have.
His offensive line. Now, I will give you this: his offensive line. Excuse me, at Oklahoma, were declining. But here's the thing. They had some transfers in on that offensive line. That offensive line is an NFL size offensive line. He's going to have
USC or Oklahoma?
USC this year.
Yeah.
He's going to have no problem recruiting offensive linemen to play in his system that is predicated on the running game. And Travis Dye, Mr. Barehanded Wonder, doesn't wear gloves, doesn't wear sleeves. It's just him with bare hand. And whoever his backup is, it's going to be 2,000-yard backs, and Caleb Williams is going to do Caleb Williams things. Jordan Addison's going to win the Biletnikoff probably again, more than likely. Or Mario Williams. It doesn't matter, dude. It doesn't matter.
I think you're wrong about one thing. I think everything else you're right about.
Okay.
I think they're a really good team. He's, again, one of the greatest offensive minds of all time. And just the record, you're not a bad offensive mind and a good recruiter, right? Because he's had basically 4 Heisman winners. He had almost four Heisman. He had Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray,
Jalen Hurts,
and
then Caleb Williams was in the running at one point last year.
That's who replaced. Who did he replace? Kyle.
Jalen.
I forget. Jalen.
Or Spencer. He replaced Spencer.
Play Spencer, but yeah, there is. Anyway, he just genius. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
That's no question about it. I think the issue is the way that Utah looked last year. They are hungry, and I think they're gonna want it more because no one respects them. And at the end of the day, I think that's the issue that USC has and that LA has is nobody wants it enough.
So
the people who get stuff done want it more. And you don't go to LA if you want something.
But Lincoln Riley isn't from LA. Lincoln Riley is, I don't even know where he's from, but he started out at East Carolina.
Right.
And then he went to Oklahoma. You telling me those people aren't hardworking in East Carolina and Oklahoma, in Norman, Oklahoma? I mean, I'm not trying to call anyone out, but I'm going to say you're right. They're not LA people. Those are hardworking Southern.
He's from Lubbock, Texas. He went to his hometown school.
He is from. He's not LA, no. But I will give you this: Utah's going to have the better defense. Okay, the only soft spot in Utah is going to it's polar opposite. The soft spot in USC is going to be their defense, and the soft spot in Utah is going to be their offense. Utah, remember, started 3-3 last year.
Yeah. And
then they kind of reverted to what they were, which was ground and pound, win the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively, and it got them a lot. It got them everywhere. It helped that they ran into Oregon twice, and they manhandled them both times because Oregon is much like a cream puff, which is soft in the center. But so Utah will probably beat USC in the regular season, but they're not going to beat them if they meet again in the championship game. And I have so many, like Texas, that happened one year with Texas.
Yep.
That happened with Iowa State and Oklahoma as well. Beat them in the regular season, beat Oklahoma in the regular season, didn't beat them in the championship game. TCU was the same way. Almost beat them, and then, so he has a history of beating them. They're also at Utah, 10-15. October 15th, they're at Utah. They're probably going to lose that game. I'm not going to lie. But also, their schedule is not easy. USC, they go to Utah. They're at UCLA as well, and they play Notre Dame at home. But outside of that, who's exactly going to pound USC?
I didn't say they were going to get pounded, mind you. I just said you're presenting me gold on a shit plate. Sorry, Mom. And you're expecting me to say this is the best thing ever. And I think they're going to be at most 2-loss team. But this is what's going to happen is, let's say they go undefeated. Highly likely. They roll over Utah. They roll over Oregon. They roll over UCLA. No offense, Notre Dame's not going to get it done this year. Not with a transfer coach.
Great defense.
Not with how...
Great defense.
Great defense. But like you said, 100 billion points.
Yep.
They're just going to throw around. They have 2 first-round wide receivers.
And a first-round quarterback, yep.
And an overall top-pick quarterback. And like you said, they have 2 2,000-yard rushers because that's how Lincoln Riley does it when he does it right. But the issue is, much like Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma, they'll get into the playoffs and they'll just fall, bam, flat on their face because they're not going to have enough to get over the hump. And the issue that they have is the second year, because of the recruits he's able to get because he's at USC now, is when he would be able to push it up. The issue is you go to USC, you either go because it's in LA or you go for the coach. And the question for me in this version of USC, mind you, the question I have, it's which is going to outweigh the other. because you don't have the LA you used to have, so you have to go for Lincoln Riley and the fact that he's your golden ticket to the NFL. Again, I have nothing against the team. I have nothing against the players. I just don't. We've crowned them the perfect thing, the perfect child, and when these guys get in real game mode, which is the college football playoff, they're going to fall flat on their face, just like Michigan did last year.
Well, and you have to remember, though, a lot of first-time teams to the college football playoff fall flat on their face. Ohio State actually
100%.
fell flat on their face twice. So Notre Dame fell flat on their face twice in the college football playoff. A lot of first-time teams. So I'm not going to hold that if they were to get it against USC. It's funny that you take this argument that we're all crowning them, because my point for USC was not going to crown them the golden goose for the Pac-12 this year. I was actually planning on crowning Utah, because I feel like Utah is the most complete team with the most experienced head coach that there is. I just feel like Utah has everything you want. But then you went on the rant. You got me all fired up, so I went full-blown USC.
Listen, when you let me go, my rants are pretty good.
That is correct.
A white man.
But
I just love that soundbite so much.
But I do agree with you that I do feel that it is a too good to be true situation, especially in year one. That there is some sort of, and it might be 924 in Corvallis with Oregon State. There's a history there of USC going up to Oregon State, having a great team and falling flat on their face. It could be at Stanford the second week of the season with David Shaw. I mean, it could be anywhere. It could be at Arizona right before Halloween. You know, weird things happen right before Halloween with college football. That's a day before Halloween. So you're kidding me? It could be at UCLA.
You have poison in your mouth.
I just think it looks too good to be true, but also it's the Pac-12.
Right. Which I think is... Sorry, I heard a whisper that someone was behind me. I may die, so if I die,
okay,
make sure you post the podcast.
Yep, will do. Thanks.
No, I think you're 100% right. I think it's worse than the Big 12.
The one thing that I totally agree with in your rant that you said is they're going to be the most exciting team. Everyone's going to watch them starting week 2. No one's going to watch them against Rice. Well, USC fans will, and people want to look, but listen, they're going to win that 38-7.
But they're playing against Luke McCaffrey. He could do so much.
Well, maybe. But, I mean, it's Stanford, then Fresno, and then it's Oregon State. And once they start rolling, I mean, and Utah and USC could meet 10-15, both undefeated. And again, it might be round 1 of 2. You don't know. But also, USC's schedule is also good enough to have good enough to have 1 loss and still make the college football playoff. It's actually good.
Try this.
It's actually good enough to have 2 losses and still make the college football playoff.
All right, here we go.
I'm Alpha.
We don't need. That's final thoughts. Real quick, UCLA, crosstown rivals of USC.
Either going to have a really good season or it's going to be mediocre and Chip Kelly's going to be fired. I'm not going to say they're a dumpster fire because Chip Kelly is too good of a coach to have a dumpster fire season.
Sure.
But it's one or the other. It's either they're going to be a 1 or 2 loss team because they have their starting quarterback and running back. They need defensive help. They only bring back 3 starters. They need to run the ball for success. But they're either going to be 10-2, 11-1, or they're going to be 8-4, 7-6, 7-5. That's it.
Hey, Daddy.
Oregon. This is the last one I want to touch on because we basically went on about who's going to win this.
Yeah, with Utah. Yeah.
They're in an ellipses to the rest of the sentence.
It's interesting because that roster was recruited so well. Mario Cristobal did such a good job at recruiting. They have an unlimited bank account with Phil Knight being the investor up there in Eugene and all of that. They bring in a great defensive mind. I will give him that. And he will get more than enough defensive recruits to keep that Oregon defense top notch. They will be physical. They will be fast. They will be blah, 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 blah. Everything you want in a good defense. My only question is offense. And it doesn't get any easier. That question doesn't get answered any easier with the quarterback that transferred in, which is Bo Nix. Bo Nix was so up and down at his hometown school, Auburn, that maybe it is a situation that he gets away from all of his hometown peer pressure, where his daddy went and started for that college team. He gets to the Mid-Northwest where no one's going to watch him, the Pacific Northwest that is, and he does great things, and he becomes a day 2 draft pick. And then they get Georgia week 1. So I don't. Again, the talent's there, but I don't know if it will all come together for a first-year head coach at a big program, new quarterback, new everything. You get they're probably going to lose to Georgia because it's in the Atlanta Superdome. So they're going to lose to Georgia, and then they get Eastern Washington, then they get BYU, Washington State, Stanford, Arizona, UCLA, Cal, Colorado, Washington, Utah, Oregon. I mean, you're probably looking at an 8-win football team. However, if their defense is outstanding and Bo Nix is consistent, doesn't turn the ball over, blah, 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 they're probably still losing to Georgia. They could be a 10-win football team. It could really go either way. So, much like UCLA, Oregon's in the exact same boat. They're either going to be a 10-win football team or an 7 or 8-win football team.
Except their coach won't get fired at the end of the year.
Except their coach won't get fired at the end of the year.
I'm 100% with you. I'm 100% with you. That wraps up the Pac-12. Sorry, with 14 teams, as Herm Edwards used to say. 14 teams. I think that was Herm Edwards.
Basic math is not their strong suit.
I mean, Big 10.
Big 10 too. Teams. Yeah, at least the Pac-12's closer.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. We're gonna hit up teams like BYU, Notre Dame. We'll touch on them in one of these weeks. Thank you guys always for listening.
Time out. We're the idiots.
Oh, it looks like
we're the idiots.
You said
they have 12 teams.
Oh, did they finally go down to 12?
I don't think they were ever at 14. I think there was talk of them going to 14.
That's right, and I'm thinking of the Big 10.
Yeah,
Big 10, 14 teams.
Yeah.
How does that make sense?
All right. Well, it looks like Pac-12 is smart after all. Bad at football, but smart nonetheless.
As always, ladies and gentlemen, that's been the 4th and 1 podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Support us always. All our links, anchor.fm/4th and 1, Instagram, 4th and 1 podcast for Kaya.
Wash your hands, you filthy animals.